If you had unlimited credits, which Star Wars ship would you actually live in? Not fly, not fight in, live in. Wake up every morning, brew your caf, stare out a viewport, and call it home. Sounds like a dream, right? Except most of these ships would make you absolutely miserable within a week. Some would kill you even faster. The galaxy is full of iconic spacecraft, but the gap between looks incredible on screen and would actually be livable is enormous. You're about to find out which ships would leave you stranded, sleep deprived, or breathing recycled air that smells like a Wookiee's gym bag. Some of these picks are going to make you angry. Good, that means we're doing this right. Number 10. Let's start with the ship half of you already want to defend. Din Djarin's pre-Empire gunship, a military surplus relic that somehow held together with spit and prayer for decades. If you buy one of these, you're the guy who drops 6 figures restoring a 1972 Bronco and acts surprised when the heat doesn't work in January. Living aboard the Razor Crest would feel like camping in a steel shipping container that occasionally gets shot at. The cockpit is cramped, the cargo hold is cavernous but unfinished, and the sleeping quarters are glorified weapons locker with a cot. Din literally stored a carbonite frozen bounty 3 feet from where he slept. Imagine your roommate hanging a frozen body on the wall and saying, "Don't worry about it." Comfort is almost non-existent. Privacy is technically fine because nobody else would willingly live here. Safety is a real concern since the Razor Crest had no shields worth mentioning and a hull patched together from scrapyard panels, held together by mechanical optimism that borders on religious faith. Reliability is shaky at best. This ship was old when Din got it, and it only got older. For long-term livability, you'd need to gut the entire cargo bay and build out a proper living space yourself, and at that point, you're not really living on the Razor Crest anymore, you're living in a renovation project that flies. Here's a detail most people miss. The Razor Crest was a pre-Empire patrol craft designed for short-duration system hops, not extended habitation. In Legends-adjacent lore, ships in this class were nicknamed Durasteel coffins by Clone Wars-era pilots. The ventilation was designed for 72-hour mission cycles. After 3 days, the air gets thick. After a week, you're living inside your own breath. You think this one's rough? Wait until you see the iconic ship coming next that's somehow less livable. Number 9. Here it comes. The most famous ship in the galaxy, and genuinely one of the worst places a rich person could choose to live. The Falcon is a YT-1300 Corellian light freighter, a polite way of saying it's a flying delivery truck that's been hot-rodded beyond all reason. Living on the Falcon would be like moving into a renovated warehouse where the landlord swears the exposed wiring is part of the character. The main hold doubles as a lounge, strategy room, and Dejeric table. The crew quarters are narrow bunks stacked into the walls. The corridors are tight enough that 2 people can't pass without turning sideways. And then there's the noise. The Falcon's hyperdrive is famously unreliable, which means you'd spend half your nights listening to something rattle, clank, or hiss, and wondering if it's a minor annoyance or a catastrophic systems failure about to ruin your evening. Comfort is mediocre at best. Privacy barely exists because the ship was designed for a crew of 4 to 6 in close quarters. Safety is a daily gamble since the ship has been shot at by literally every major faction in galactic history at one point or another. Reliability is the real killer. The hyperdrive fails at the worst possible moments, the landing gear sticks, and entire systems require percussive maintenance, which is a technical term for hitting it until it works. In Legends, the Falcon's previous owners modified it so many times that its internal systems became contradictory. Lando once described the wiring as a schizophrenic droid's nervous system. Repair droids reportedly refused to work on it. The Falcon is a cultural monument, but living on it full-time would feel like renting a studio above a machine shop where the machines occasionally explode. Now, what if you crammed all that claustrophobia into something even smaller? Number 8. Jango Fett's Firespray 31 is the sports car of this list. It looks menacing, flies like nothing else, and living inside it would be an ergonomic disaster. The Firespray flies vertically and lands horizontally, meaning the entire interior orientation shifts. Your floor becomes your wall, your bed becomes a shelf. Every piece of furniture needs reconfiguring every time you take off or land. Imagine rearranging your apartment twice a day just to use the bathroom. Most of the hull is dedicated to weapons systems, prisoner containment cells, and the sensor suite. What's left for actual living space is roughly the square footage of a large walk-in closet. Comfort is almost an afterthought. Privacy is total, but only because nobody's coming to visit you in this thing. Safety is exceptional from an offensive standpoint. Few ships in its class can match the Firespray's raw firepower. But defensively, one solid hit to the main hull and you're in serious trouble because there's nowhere to retreat to. The whole ship is essentially one compartment. In Legends, the Firespray 31 was originally a prototype patrol ship for the prison world of Uvo 4. Jango stole it during a prison break and destroyed the other 5 prototypes to ensure his was unique. Even the extra rooms are basically prisoner cages with magnetic locks. Living on Slave 1 would be like buying a Lamborghini and trying to sleep in it every night. Speaking of ships never meant for comfort, the next one tried harder and still mostly failed. Number 7. Hera Syndulla's Ghost is the closest thing so far to an actual livable ship, and it's still basically a flying 70s RV with a turret bolted on top. The VCX-100 was designed as a light freighter, so it at least had the bones for extended habitation. The Ghost has individual crew cabins, a common area, a functional galley, a cargo bay with actual room to move, and a detachable shuttle called the Phantom that gives you a secondary escape option. Daily life aboard the Ghost would feel like living in a well-used mobile home with military-grade locks on the doors. It's not luxurious by any stretch, but it's functional in a way that none of the previous ships can honestly claim. Comfort is passable. The cabins are small but private, and the common areas have that lived-in warmth that comes from years of actual use. Privacy is decent for a ship this size, since each crew member had their own bunk with a door that closed, which already puts it ahead of most entries. Safety is strong thanks to dorsal and ventral turrets, solid shields, and the kind of rugged construction that kept it flying through years of active rebellion. Reliability is above average because Hera maintained the Ghost religiously, treating it less like a machine and more like a member of the crew. Here's the catch. The Ghost's crew quarters were stacked above the cargo bay, connected by a narrow ladder well. Any mobility issues in this ship becomes a nightmare. There's also the fact that the Ghost was a known rebel vessel flagged in Imperial databases for decades. Buying one as a rich civilian is painting a target on your hull. The Ghost is the most home-like entry so far, but it's still a military-adjacent freighter held together by one woman's dedication. The next ship is a wartime legend with more room and more problems. Legends fans, this one's for you. The Ebon Hawk from Knights of the Old Republic occupies this fascinating space where it's genuinely well designed for habitation, but comes from an era so ancient that the technology feels like living in a medieval castle with running water. Impressive for its time, but rough by modern galactic standards. The Ebon Hawk is a dynamic class light freighter, and it was designed during an era where ships were built to last because replacement parts might be months away. The interior is spacious by freighter standards, with a central hub layout that branches into crew quarters, a medical bay, a cargo hold, a workshop, and a surprisingly functional cockpit lounge area. Daily life would feel like living in a well-organized bunker with good bones and terrible insulation. Comfort is moderate, privacy is solid with separate quarters behind real walls and doors, and reliability is actually the ship's strongest feature since dynamic class freighters were overbuilt by modern standards, with redundant systems designed for deep space survival. A lesser-known detail. The Ebon Hawk's ownership history was so convoluted that no one could fully trace it. It had been a smuggling vessel, Jedi transport, privateer ship, and Mandalorian prize. The ship had its own reputation, independent of whoever flew it, and that reputation attracted trouble like a luxury car attracts parking lot dings. Living here would be like inheriting a centuries-old farmhouse. Great structure, real character, but every system needs updating, and something in the walls is making a noise nobody can explain. Ready for something with more polish? The next ship was built for diplomats. Number 5. Now we're getting into serious real estate. The CR90, the class that includes Leia's Tantive 4, is the entry-level yacht of the Star Wars universe. At 150 meters long, it's the first ship where you could genuinely stretch your legs. Living aboard a CR90 would feel like owning a small cruise ship. Multiple decks, dedicated crew quarters, conference rooms, a proper galley, medical facilities, and enough cargo space to furnish the whole thing like a penthouse if you wanted to. You'd wake up in a real bed, in a real room, with enough space between you and the nearest crew member that you might actually forget other people exist for a few hours. Comfort is genuinely good since the CR90 was designed for diplomatic missions, meaning the original designers actually thought about things like lighting, air quality, and interior finish. Privacy is excellent, with enough square footage to designate entire sections of the ship as personal space. Safety is where things complicate. The CR90 carries turbo lasers and decent shielding, but it's not a warship. It was designed to outrun threats, not fight them. In Legends, CR90s were so common among wealthy civilians that they became prime pirate targets. Owning one was advertising money and limited firepower. The CR90 is the first ship that feels like a home rather than a compromise, but feels like a home and is safe enough to be one, are different things. This next ship makes this look like a garden shed. Number 4. Queen Amidala's Royal Starship is pure chromium-plated elegance. If every other ship is a house, this one is a penthouse in Monaco. The Naboo built it as a flying embassy, and every centimeter reflects that. The interior is stunning. Polished surfaces, throne rooms, conference chambers, handmaiden quarters, a full royal suite, and corridors wide enough to walk 3 abreast. The air filtration systems were rumored to be scented. The lighting was calibrated to Naboo's natural daylight spectrum. This ship wanted you to feel like royalty, because it was literally built for royalty. Comfort is the best on this list so far, and privacy is outstanding since the royal suite alone is larger than some entire ships we've already covered. But here's where it gets ugly. Safety is genuinely terrible. The J-Type 327 was built for a pacifist planet with minimal defense systems. Amidala's ship only survived the Trade Federation blockade through astromech droids, luck, and plot armor that real life doesn't provide. The chromium hull was also maintenance intensive. In Legends, it required specialized artisans from Naboo to maintain properly. Your paint job requires craftsmen from one specific planet. That's not a home, that's a diva. A lesser known fact, the chromium finish was a diplomatic signal indicating the ship carried Naboo's reigning monarch, granting protection under interplanetary law. Without a monarch on board, that protection vanishes, making it a shiny, slow, poorly defended target. Beautiful every single day, right up until someone decides they want it more than you do. Now, what happens when you start thinking about warships? Number 3. Let's go big. The Venator-class Star Destroyer, the backbone of the Republic Navy during the Clone Wars, is over 1,000 meters long. That's not a ship, that's a floating city, and if you were rich enough to buy one, you could convert it into the most absurdly excessive living space in galactic history. Daily life aboard a converted Venator would feel like living alone in an abandoned shopping mall. You'd have entire hangar bays you could turn into indoor gardens, flight decks that could become sports arenas, officer quarters that already function as decent apartments. The bridge alone has panoramic views that would make any real estate agent weep. You would have rooms you'd never visit, corridors you'd never walk, and entire decks you might forget exist. Comfort is whatever you make it, because you've got enough space to build literally anything you can imagine. Privacy is absolute. You could go days without seeing another person, even if a full maintenance crew was aboard. Safety is where the Venator shines, because it was a warship carrying enough turbo laser batteries to glass a continent. Nothing short of another capital ship is threatening you, but reliability is the problem. Venators require thousands of personnel to operate properly. We're talking thousands for full functionality, and even a skeleton crew for basic systems would number in the hundreds. Your home now requires a permanent staff the size of a small town. In Legends, decommissioned Venators were so expensive that even planetary governments struggled with costs. The reactor consumed fuel at rates that would bankrupt most fortunes within years. Crime syndicates that acquired them after the Clone Wars were forced to strip them for parts within months. The Venator is the dream of unlimited space, but unlimited space comes with unlimited maintenance, crew requirements, and utility bills. It's the galactic equivalent of buying a castle, then realizing you can't afford to heat it. You think a Star Destroyer is excessive? You haven't seen anything yet. Number 2. Lando Calrissian's personal yacht, a Sorosub Personal Luxury Yacht 3000, is the single most intentionally livable ship on this list. Designed from day one for one person to live extremely well in deep space. Living aboard would feel like owning a luxury penthouse that happens to fly. Lando outfitted it with actual wood paneling, which in a galaxy that builds everything from Durasteel and Transparasteel is an obscene flex. The ship had a private lounge, a bar, a fully equipped galley with food preservation systems rated for months of autonomous travel, and a guest suite specially designed so Lando could entertain in style. Reliability is excellent, since Sorosub built the Ply 3000 platform for wealthy clients who expected their ships to work flawlessly every single time. In Legends, the Lady Luck had a custom escape pod disguised as part of the hull. Lando didn't want attackers knowing he had a way out. He also rigged the transponder to broadcast multiple false identities. The man turned paranoia into an art form. The Lady Luck is possibly the best ship in Star Wars to actually live in. Comfortable, safe, reliable, and purpose-built for the lifestyle. So why isn't it number 1? Because number 1 isn't just a home, it's a statement that borders on insanity. Number 1. The Eclipse, Palpatine's personal superstar destroyer from Legends. 16 kilometers long. You don't live in the Eclipse, you rule from it. Imagine waking up every morning aboard a vessel so large it has its own internal weather patterns in the larger hangar bays. The command tower rose above the main hull like a Gothic cathedral, featuring private chambers designed for the Emperor himself. Those chambers were outfitted with every conceivable luxury because Palpatine, whatever else you want to say about him, did not believe in personal discomfort. The throne room alone was the size of a concert hall. You could dedicate entire decks to private museums, another to a garden biome, another to a full-service spa. The ship carried over 700,000 crew and troops at full capacity, which means the infrastructure for food, water, medical care, and recreation was already built in at city scale. The fuel costs alone would drain sovereign treasuries. In Legends, the Empire diverted funding from multiple sector fleets just to keep it operational. If a single critical system failed, the repair logistics could take months. You're not a homeowner anymore, you're a city administrator with the most complicated infrastructure in the galaxy. A lesser known detail, the Turbo Laser's Kyber Crystal Array created a persistent low-frequency vibration throughout the superstructure. Crew reported a constant, barely perceptible hum that never stopped. Long-term exposure caused headaches, sleep disruption, and psychological unease. Your dream home literally vibrates with the energy of a planet-killing weapon. Sleep tight. The Eclipse is the ultimate power fantasy. It's the ship you buy when you don't just want to live in space. You want space to know you're there. But the cost, complexity, and sheer madness of maintaining a 16-kilometer warship as a private residence makes it the most spectacular and most impractical choice on this list. And that's exactly why it's number 1. If you want more right now, click the link in the description to check out our last video on 10 Star Wars locations that would be nightmare vacation spots. 10 ships, 10 lifestyles, 10 increasingly unhinged real estate decisions in a galaxy far, far away. We went from a rattling gunship held together by hope and Beskar residue all the way up to a planet-cracking dreadnought that hums you to sleep with a sound of existential dread. The truth is, most of these ships would make you miserable, bankrupt, or dead within a year. The Falcon breaks down every Tuesday. The Nubian Royal Starship is a chrome magnet for pirates. The Eclipse requires a small nation's GDP just to keep the lights on. And somewhere in the middle, Lando's Lady Luck is just quietly being perfect while everyone argues about Star Destroyers. Drop a comment and tell me which ship you'd actually choose and which you'd avoid at all costs. I know the Millennium Falcon fans are coming for me, and I'm ready. If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe. We do deep dives like this all the time, and the next one is even more controversial. I'll see you there.